Thursday, the 18th day of Elul, the 26th day of August. Today's class, graciously sponsored by David Zohar and family for the Refuah Shelema of his father, David Mehila, Reuben ben Munir. In Eretz Israel, may Hashem give him a Refuah Shelema among all of the Cholim of Am Israel. Amen. We have a technical situation here with the mic. Torah will continue. Go ahead, William, do shinui. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm back. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Daniel Batronit also, Be'ezat Hashem, should have a easy delivery in a few hours, right? בשעה טובה מוצלחת בסימן טוב. Sure. רינה בת סרינה, רפואה שלמה, הרב דוד חנניה בן מזל. אוקיי, לולה בת ויקטוריה, יעקב בן רחל, ג'תבים ברוך השם. He's out of the hospital, Yaakov ben Rachel. So we are very, very, very happy that Borei Olam activated His infinite mercy. And Baruch Hashem is heading home as we speak. So that's a beautiful, beautiful reason later on to do a Sa'udat Hoda'ah Be'ezat Hashem. So let's go. It's 9:30 because it's Thursday. So let's go to Tomer Deborah immediately. So I saw something fascinating, and this is what we left it yesterday. We discussed how can a person activate all the beautiful lessons that we discussed for the past almost 18 days of Elul. So listen to the words of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. Says as follows: when God forbid someone has a wound in the body, there are many ways. Thank you, William. Hazaku Baruch. There are many ways of how to heal the wound. And there are many techniques. Sometimes could be stitches, God forbid. Sometimes you just need to clean it with a bit of alcohol, right? With a bit of gauze. You put tape, and gradually the body or the wound heals. And part of the miracle is that many times that goes back to the original way it was before the wound. So comes Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and it says, now we are going to utilize different techniques to heal the soul. My example was to heal the body. Now we're going to discuss how to heal the soul of the person that has a couple of wounds, let's put it. So it says, rule number 1 in life, hu lechabed hanivra'im kulam. Respect everyone. Everyone. Doesn't matter who the person is. And it says, why? It says a very interesting concept. And he explains the following. The fact that a person exists, okay, it means that God, so to speak, is giving this person the power to live. That's the difference between being alive and not being alive, correct? Alive means what? That the neshama, the soul, is inside of the person's body. As long as the soul is there, the clock is ticking. But if you remove the battery of the microphone or the cell phone or the watch, what happens? It doesn't work. Hamavdil. So it says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, since you and I and we all understand that every living creature, and we're going to discuss soon about animals, and we're going to discuss about flowers and plants. So far, we're talking about human beings. So it says, the truth is that if you come across in your life a human being, that means that there is a godly element on that person. And let's clarify, here we are not making any distinction on gender, male or female, Jew or Gentile. He said no difference at all, because once you understand that the created was created by the Creator, I hope it makes sense what I'm saying. So when you honor the person, you are honoring the Creator of the person. You follow me? It's like you honor your parents, you honor God. You don't honor your parents, you're not honoring God. That is the reason why in the 10 Commandments, where is the commandment of honoring parents? On the same column of honoring God. Why? Because your parents are godly given to the person. You were born to this family because this is your family. That's a God given to the person. And it says, so what happens? It says, Rabino Moshe Cordovero, that the more you're going to respect people, the more you will come to understand the essence of godliness in the world. But if God forbid, it says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, Be'ilu yebaze otam. But instead of respecting people, you act towards them in a condescending manner. Okay? You mistreat the person. It says, you know what you are doing? Nogea bichvod yosram. You are condescending God. It's a heavy word. These are heavy words, Rabotai. You know, most of us says, okay, God is God, human is human. Here he's telling us that God lives through the human, besides all the higher level of godliness. And therefore it says that if God forbid, you know, the person doesn't act properly towards others, God feels the pain of that person. And the truth is that there are different sources. One of them comes from a different Sefer of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and it says, Shelo yedaber genai al shum adam. Always train yourself never to say or to make any derogatory comment against a person. But you know what the Hidush is? Not only against the person, but even on any creation, including animals. Where do we learn this from? So it says, the Gemara tells a story that there was a group of students walking with the rabbi. I think the name of the rabbi was Rabbi Yehuda. And one of the students says, what a putrid smell this carcass has. You know what Rabbi Yehuda said? What a white set of teeth this animal has. In other words, you're concentrating on the negative. And again, nobody denies that maybe the carcass or the remains of the animal had a foul smell. But Rabbi Yehuda is telling the student, I say, why the animal is dead? What do you have to say? We know that it's smelling. We know that it's putrid. We know. Why don't you concentrate on the positive? And it says, if this is how the Talmud feels about making a comment about a dead animal, imagine yourself making a derogatory comment against another person. And it says, the Buddha is teaching us, always find a positive side to make a comment. Goes further, Reshit Chokhmah, and it says, there are people that have this kind of attitude. If the person that they interact with them is a wealthy person, they treat them one way. If the person is middle of the road, a different way. And if the person is poor, they barely talk to them, right? Make sense? I hope not, but the reality is that it does happen. So comes the Reshit Chokhmah and it says, I don't understand that kind of attitude, it says. It says, what difference does it make between person 1, 2, and 3? That they have a few extra dollars? In 1 second, God can make the wealthy poor and the poor wealthy. And we don't have to go through examples. Maybe some people already saw it in their own life or saw it in other people's life, right? Hashem Morishu Ma'ashir. You know, one of the names of money, it's Mammon. Mammon. And our rabbis tell us Mammon, the word Mammon, is the same numerical value as the word Sulam, a ladder. Because money goes up and money comes down. Another name of money in Talmudic language is Zuzim. Why Zuzim? Shetamid Zazim. They're always in motion. What they say in English, cash flow. Right? That cash flow comes from the Talmud. The money needs to flow. Needs to be for the health of the economy. Another name of money is Damim, blood. Blood money. What does it mean, blood money? It doesn't mean, God forbid, that you kill Chas v'Shalom. It means you sweat, you work very, very hard, and then you are become a whole different person because of money. But it says, I don't understand that kind of mindset. Now, if based on what Rabbi Moshe Cordovero said in the opening statement of today's class, that when you're respecting another person, you are respecting Hashem, the Creator. So when we don't respect the person, so you're telling the Creator, God, you made a mistake, you made that person poor, therefore I'm not talking to them. It says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, what kind of foolish, situation are you bringing to your home? So the Gemara tells another story, what not to do. There was a rabbi traveling and saw a person, and this person looked really ugly. Mamash, that's what the Gemara says. Don't ask me what does it mean ugly based on the time of the Talmud. But that's what it means. Maybe the person wasn't clean, maybe the person, Chas v'Shalom, may have been homeless, who knows? And it says that this rabbi was so shocked that he froze when he saw this person. And the person said, Rabbi, if you have any complaints, speak to the maker. Speak to the one that made me. I didn't make myself this way. This is how I was made. And it says that the rabbi, went to this person and apologized to him. Even though the rabbi didn't say anything, but what did the rabbi do? He froze. And by the way, it happened to me maybe a year ago. It happened to me over a year ago. Somebody calls me, emergency situation. I ran, and then when I opened the door of the room, I froze. Because the person who talked to me on the phone wasn't the person who was in the room. I thought it was somebody else. I'm not going to go into details. But I'll tell you one thing that happened to me that day. That I left the hospital and I had a car accident. Minor, thank God. But where was the car accident? On the corner of the street that happened to be the same name of the patient that I went to see in the hospital in Kendall on a Friday noon. Not the first name, the last name. I can't go any further. I did my spiritual research and due diligence. I had to call in the reinforcement because the whole story weird, the whole story strange. But retroactively, I understood. But let's continue. So you understand what does it mean that the rabbi froze? And the guy said, what are you expecting to see a rabbi? I sound Jewish because I know that you will come. So you can understand who was waiting for me in the room. Anyways, let's continue. So comes further and it says, the Reshit Chochmah, it says, in a way, they reprinted the same thing twice. 1 second. Okay, it quotes twice the commentary in 2 different pages, the same source, which I just mentioned about the Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit. So what's next? Okay, now I learn cleaning the wound. Respect everyone. But it says, not only respect, now we need to sanitize the wound so it heals properly. So it says all these physical examples, but a spiritual cleansing of the soul. It says, Yargil atzmo liachnis ahavat bnei adam belibbo. Learn, and this is not easy. The one that we're going to say now, it's easy to respect people. But now he's telling you, respecting is the minimum requirement. Now you need to move on to the mezzanine. Now you're in the lobby. I need to go to the mezzanine. What is the mezzanine? It says, train yourself to develop love to people. Not easy. Not easy. Of course, I'm sure that we love people. The question is, how many do we love? I mentioned this a long time ago. If you look in the Pelei Yoez, he says that there are at least 8 different levels of type of love. The way you love your parents is different than the way you love your rabbi. The way you love your rabbi is different than the way you love your child. The way you love your child is different than you love your wife. The way you love your wife is different than you love your mother-in-law or father-in-law. Okay? Sure. Like there is a mitzvah to honor your parents, there is a mitzvah to honor your in-laws. You know why? Because without your in-laws, you will not have your wife. Although some in-laws may overdo it, etc., there's always jokes and stories and comments, right? Whenever it comes to in-laws, but definitely as people who learn and pray and want to do the right thing, don't fall on that trap that people outside says, my mother-in-law, oh, my father-in-law, etc. It's like the son-in-law who becomes the mother-in-law to the airport, say, welcome, welcome, when are you leaving? On the same day that they arrive, he asks her, when are you leaving? No, to make sure to clear my calendar so I can make sure to take it to the airport. True story, by the way, true story. It happened here a few years back. I remember that because the mother-in-law called me to complain. That's how I know the details. I said, no, he wanted to have the mitzvah of taking you back to the airport and make sure that you are past TSA, right? Because he wants you to be with the rest of the children back in Israel, because it's not so much easy to leave the land of Israel.
With one-way ticket.
Yes. Anyways, let's put all the jokes aside. Maybe my mother-in-law is watching and say, Yosef, but my mother-in-law and I and my father-in-law, thank God, they're good people. Thank God, and Baruch Hashem, I'm very fortunate and I'm very thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that. Anyways, so it says, because at the end of the day, love, and there is a mitzvah from the Torah. For example, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, the mitzvah of loving God. Okay? Now, like it or not, the reality is that whenever we come to pray, whenever we do a good deed, we do a mitzvah, we say a beracha, we learn Torah, we give charity, even though they seem to be different types of actions or commandments, but that's how we honor God. For the Gemara writes, Retzono shel ha'adam zehu kevodo. It says, fulfilling the will of the person, it's honoring the person. Let's say that I invite you to eat, for example, right? And I try to serve you. And you said, no, too much. No, eat, there is plenty of food. You know what the Talmud says? That respecting the will of the other person, that is the way that you honor the person. Because otherwise, if I'm going to push my way into your plate, and I'm going to do, eat this, but you're telling me, Rabbi, I don't like this vegetable. He said, no, my wife did it with a lot of love. I understand, but if I don't like the vegetable, so that's what the Talmud says. It says sometimes the honoring of the person is doing what they like, what they want, not what you want. Okay? And that's why in marriage, it's not me, but it's we, for example. So it says, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, that the person, if they look into the neshama of another Yehudi, it says, you will be able to find good things in another person. I think what Rabbi Moshe Cordovero is trying to say is, don't believe that there is a person that everything that they have is wrong and everything that they have is deficient. He says the opposite. You know, if you look, you'll find. Obviously, it could be exceptions to this statement. Let's be honest here. But it says, if you look for the good part of it, you will find. It says, imagine yourself that the person may say, oh, if he would have had nicer clothing, I will be a friend of his. If he will have more money, I will become his friend. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero says, in English we say, don't judge a book by its cover. And you know where that comes from? From this class of today. It says, don't judge the person by the way they are dressed. Don't judge the person by the wealth. Don't judge the person by the external materialistic elements of life. But look at the person for the essence of the person. Okay? How many times you hear stories? It happened to a relative of mine. He went to buy a Cadillac. Remember the Cadillac on Surfside, Bay Harbor in the corner? Yes. So I don't remember exactly the details, but apparently he went to another dealership, or he went to that dealership, and he looks externally simple. Like it says here, simple. He looks simple. So when a salesman sees him, he says, our vehicles are not for your league. Go down to the other Oldsmobile dealership. Remember that? Oldsmobile on 125th Street, Cadillac on 96th Street, which is the same street, by the way. And he says, no, you're the way you dress, you don't qualify to buy a Mercedes, to buy a Cadillac. He says, go to the dealership of the Oldsmobile or Yugo. Remember those cars? Okay, right. So the fellow was so upset that he was judged because of the t-shirt and pants that he was wearing, that he went to the Mercedes dealership on 107th Street, I believe?
7th Avenue.
7th Avenue, thank you very much. I see you know your geography, Hazako Baruch. And he bought a Mercedes with a check. And then he came to the Cadillac dealership to wave to the salesman, rubbing in his face the beautiful new Mercedes that he bought. Now, I'm not promoting Mercedes. I'm not bashing Cadillac. You know, both are good cars, etc. But I'm telling you that these kind of situations, how can play a trick in the neshama of the person. Because that was a simple case of buying a car. But what happens when it comes to interaction with people in the synagogue, in your building, in your office, in your life? So it says, if they are important to be alive for God, they are important for me to respect what God gives life. Because you know what means God gives life to a certain extent? God is saying, I need you in the world. You have a mission. Now, we don't know the mission. In other words, as Yehudim, we know what our mission is. Besides the personalized mission, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have the tikkun. But it says we all share a common global responsibility to be ambassadors of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. And you may say, but I'm not a rabbi. Guess what? You don't have to be a rabbi to be an ambassador of God. You don't have to be a mekubal to be an ambassador of God. Just act properly. We didn't speak nothing about religious observance here. We only spoke about behavior. So it says, and even if you see a person that is struggling through life, don't say, oh, because he's struggling, it means that God is punishing him. And if God is punishing him or her, why should I respect them? Says the Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, God forbid that it crosses the mind of the person to say, oh, the reason why this person is suffering is because God is punishing. He says, how dare you to make such a comment or a statement? Do you know the calculations of God? Do you know how many miracles happens because a person suffers? That sometimes a tiny suffering is like the guy who, we're going back 30 years ago, maybe 30 to 35 years ago, that a fellow who his cousin needs a kidney, okay? And the cousin says, I'll donate the kidney. This is before renewal was as powerful and beautiful as it is today. We're going back maybe late 80s even. And this fellow was going to donate a kidney. So they're preparing for the surgery to his cousin. They prepared both patients, the donor and the recipient, for the surgery. A few hours later, the doctor comes to visit the donor of the kidney, and the doctor says, I think you need to be thankful to your cousin. So the patient says, doctor, I'm the donor, I'm not the recipient. He needs to come to me. The doctor says, no, your cousin saved your life. He says, what are you talking about? If he's the one who needed the kidney. He says, true, he needed the kidney. But when we open him up to remove the kidney, we notice an infection in your liver. And the lower part started to become infected. And if this would have not done of the opening up to remove the kidney, by the time you would have felt it, or you would have seen by a doctor, that infection would have been much more critical than the way it is now. So you thought you came to save your cousin's life? Your cousin's kidney failure saved your life. And at the end of the day, both lives were saved. You understand? So we don't understand. You know, the Pasuk says, and we'll finish with this. The Pasuk writes, Hanistarot la Hashem Elokeinu. The hidden facts of life belong to the Almighty. But we, Ve'aniglot lanu, whatever is revealed to us is to live by the Torah. Because at the end of the day, all these messages that we are learning from Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and this marks the conclusion of part 2. Tomorrow, Beli Neder, we're going to try to do part 3. And part 3 talks about paying attention to animals and matters that grow through life, like fruits, vegetation, how there is the godly element and the godly judgment when it comes to animals and people's interaction. The Gemara will tell us tomorrow a story about this, how a rabbi suffered tremendously for talking in a condescending way to an animal. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for tomorrow, same hour, same channel. Don't touch the dial, as the commercial said. Right? Remember that? And it says, the more goodness you enter, and I love this statement, so I'm going to read it. The more goodness you enter and positive energy you enter into your heart and your brain, the better and better you will be able to develop all the potential good and godly attributes that they must be part of our life. Now, do we guarantee that after this powerful, mega, I saw the number yesterday, 270 and 293. I didn't buy none of them. Too much to handle. Anyways, right? Okay, you deal with it and remember the Ma'aser. Anyways, so it says, after taxes, please, don't be a hacham with me. So it says that the more positive energy and goodness you bring in your life, the more goodness, it's like, like a sponge. You put a sponge, it's dry, right? You put it into the water, it absorbs. Whatever it absorbs, it releases most of it. So if we bring goodness and positive mindset and clarity of the mind and of the spirit, the output, the input and output, the more good output we're going to be able to shed and to share with everyone. We say once again, Vizchela Mizvot to David Zoran family for graciously dedicating today's class for the refuah shlema of his father, Reuben ben Munir, among all the Holim of Am Israel. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Have a great day, everybody. We'll log in tomorrow via iTorah again. Baruch.